Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another conversation highlighting scholarship from the Handbook of Virtual Exchange Across Disciplines, Building Global Citizens from Home, edited by Kelly Tzoumis and forthcoming with Springer. I am Dr. Alina Schlapak, Associate Professor in the College of Education at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and I had the privilege of serving as section head editor for the Education and Teacher Development section of the volume. One of the most rewarding aspects of this role has been the opportunity to engage with scholars whose work is reimagining teaching, learning, and global collaboration through virtual exchange. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by two of our contributing authors, Dr. Tara Metienne from the University of Florida in the United States, and Dr. Renata Castillo from Universidad San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador, South America. Their chapter, Digital Dialogues, Shifted Practices, Virtual Exchange as a Transformative Tool for Family Engaged Literacy Instruction, explores how virtual exchange can support teacher education, literacy instruction, and intercultural learning in meaningful and transformative ways. Welcome, Tara and Renata. It's wonderful to have you both here. Could you please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Thank you, Alina. It's so great to be with you today. My name is Tara Mathian, and I'm a clinical associate professor at the University of Florida in the Early Childhood Studies department. I am very interested in and engaged in international work related to early childhood studies, virtual exchange, and COIL. I do study abroad, and I also engage a lot in undergraduate teacher education work and looking at online delivery models using AR and AI in teacher preparation. Renata?
Hello, Alina and Tara. Thank you very much for this conversation and for inviting me to be part of the book. It's been a really a great pleasure to work with Tara and Alina in this journey. I want to introduce myself very briefly. I work at Universidad San Francisco. I am a professor and also the director of the education program. My interest in research is literacy education, and I'm also interested in how virtual exchange can impact the development of skills in future teachers. Thank you very much for this dialogue that we will have.
Thank you both so much. It's wonderful to hear about your work and your interests, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your partnership and collaboration. How did you first connect, and what inspired you to work together on this project? Tara?
Absolutely. So I am so blessed because I have found such a great partner in Renata. We met a few, oh my goodness, I should know the number of years. Maybe she can chime in with that. But it's been probably at least 4 years ago now, where we had a partnership visit that I was invited to attend on behalf of University of Florida to go to USFQ and just sort of meet some different people, some different faculty were interested in virtual exchange. So I actually participated in my first virtual exchange ever with one of the faculty members that is a former colleague of Renata. And so I was able to go on the visit and I met her in person, as part of that partnership visit. And we were lucky enough to have lunch together and we talked and we really just kind of hit it off at the beginning. And we said we need to remain connected when we go our separate ways. So I came back to UF and as I kind of looked ahead at future semesters and different things that we wanted to do, I thought, you know what, I'm going to reconnect with this person that I met down in Ecuador. And so we decided we would do a virtual exchange ourselves, which is the one that we will, is our chapter content. Um, and from there, we've just really, truly had the most fruitful collaborative relationship, and it's moved beyond that. We're friends. She's a friend, and she's a trusted coworker. And we have designed a study abroad program that's run a couple of times together. She's been to UF as one of our guests and done lectures for us. It's really just been a wonderful partnership.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Tara. Renata, would you like to add anything else?
I only want to thank Tara because, as she has said, collaborating and working together has been great. We have been able to meet each other in person, to become friends, and also to have projects in which we have invested our time, and it has only been a pleasure working with her. So I am very happy for our partnership and our friendship. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I know it makes a huge difference, relationality when you become friends and you get to work together and enjoy. This, I think, makes it a sustainable partnership. So, for our listeners, could you please briefly share the focus of your chapter and maybe the key ideas or questions you explored?
Yes. So our chapter, as I mentioned, this is based on that first virtual exchange project that we did together. So when we kind of took a look at our interest areas and our students and the courses that we were both teaching and engaged with, we realized that we had a couple of pretty strong underlying themes. And so this chapter really kind of talks about this COIL experience deeply embedded in the discipline of teacher education, but more than that, going into family partnership and literacy development, and kind of how those two pieces fit together. So one of the things that we both truly believe is that, literacy development truly is bolstered by a strong family partnership and family engagement. And so we really looked at this project as how, our students in the University of Florida, as well as at USFQ, what are sort of these family engagement practices that they're seeing, that they're learning about? At the same time, literacy development, the characteristics and aspects of that in both of these settings. And then kind of how the COIL project engaged them in those conversations and understanding of those practices. Renata, would you like to add any of the details?
Yeah, so when we partnered, what happened was that Tara was teaching a course in a practicum course, and I was teaching a literacy course. So we wanted to see the connection between these two courses because even though all of the students were from the education department, not all of them were taking the same class. So, what we could connect was how families can be engaged in school practices, especially in literacy, as Tara said. And we found, and we will talk more about the findings, that being able to value diversity and to bring that diversity into the classroom was one of the main things that our students could learn with the COIL or with the VE program that we incorporated in the class.
Thank you both. I think it's so exciting when you get to work, even when you have two different courses, to get to work together on the course design and plan also research around it. So based on that, so how did the virtual exchange influence the way students engage with and understood the course content? And more broadly, what impact did it have on literacy and language teacher education as a discipline? Thank you.
So really, this was such an interesting project to do because, really thinking about the discipline is one thing in and of itself. However, thinking about how the COIL or the virtual exchange project, really might have served as kind of a catalyst or a conduit to help students understand these concepts in ways that maybe they wouldn't prior or without. It was just such an interesting process to kind of look at that data and see what we were finding. So we really kind of looked at this and revealed a consistent pattern of classroom practices that truly was like woven with students' backgrounds and experiences. Like I said before, with school learning and home extensions being kind of the big, important theme there. We came up. There were four themes that came from this project, and so one of them being real world contextualized literacy, the other piece being culturally and linguistically responsive learning environments, collaborative learning practices, and then finally inclusive family engagement practices. And I think really how these students kind of understood these pieces were not only because of the discipline, right? So we're of course, we're both teaching the content and we're having them look at specific practices when, as Renata said, they were in their practicum. So they were in field experiences or they were having their clinical experiences at the same time. So they were really able to go out into the world and observe and have these data points that they could come back and then talk with each other about. And so that was the really important piece to be able to sort of compare, contrast, draw conclusions with each other on these different practices that they were seeing in classrooms across the globe from one another. And so, being able for them to kind of solidify these understandings or say, oh, that's really interesting. We learned about it a little differently. And so in that context, this is a different lens. This is the way of seeing things. And it was really powerful for the students. Renata, if you've got other pieces to add on to that, I'm sure.
Also, it was very interesting and positive that they also found many similarities because sometimes we think about two different countries. Some students maybe were in public schools. Most of my students were in private schools, learning in English as a second language, and Tara students were mainly with English speakers, and we can think about the differences, but also they found many similarities, which I think is very positive because when we think about the world, we can also see it from a perspective in which we're all human beings with many needs that are the same. And that was very positive for our students that maybe if they didn't have the opportunity to really have a conversation with a student who is doing their practicum in another country, maybe they would not have the opportunity to learn about differences, as we have said, but also the things that make us humans independently in the country where you are.
Thank you so much. And along with that, what aspects of learning or disciplinary understanding do you think might have been missing if virtual exchange had not been part of this experience?
That's an interesting question because I grapple with this idea a lot of um really kind of making sure, especially in teacher education, that we are giving our students experiences to not only understand the importance of family and culture in that context, but really understand it and be able to respond and apply strategies and comprehension skills that go along with that and support it. And I think that many teacher educators would agree that that's a really difficult thing to do. The other part that is very difficult, and if you look at even the literature on teacher preparation, it can be very difficult for us to provide experiences that empower teachers to feel confident in family engagement. And so while this project didn't give students, direct contact with families, I truly think that it gave them opportunities to see family engagement in a different way than just, sort of us teaching these theoretical frameworks about partnership strategies and different things with working with families and creating welcome environments and things like that, but really having the experience with, other students and getting that view and the insight from, an international context and a different um, regarding cultural preferences and practices that they're seeing in their sites. I'm not sure the depth that I have been able to give to my students without that would have happened. And I really feel that, without it, they would still be kind of maybe having more of a surface level understanding than what they reported, after our project, feeling much more confident, than they did at the onset of the project. So I think that's what I would probably say. Renata, what would you say?
Well, I always remember that having the class, well, I teach in Spanish, so my students have the content of the class in Spanish, and the coil was in English. So when they had to interact with students from US, English, which is my student's second language, was the main language um, of interactions. And I think that let my students be more empathetic about learning in another language that it's not their native language. And also for Tara's students, they also had to be maybe more patient or empathetic with my students who were trying to communicate and to collaborate. So I think that was a great experience that if they didn't have the opportunity to work with students from another country, definitely they would not have the experience to learn that. And if we think about how the students in the classrooms are right now, you will definitely have students who speak a different language from yours. And when you talk about family engagement and literacy instruction, language is very important. Not only like the technical aspects of language, but especially the cultural parts of language. Maybe for us, being more quiet and listening more is an aspect of our language. And maybe for students in another part of the world, that is seen as not being very maybe interested. So learning not only the, as I said, the technical parts of a language, but also the cultural aspects was very important in this project because they can then apply that with their families and the students that they will work with.
Thank you both so much. This is very interesting, and I love to hear that it was such a positive outcome working with both group of students, and thinking about the growth, right? The self identity development in terms of teachers growth, but also language skills and cross cultural communication skills. Um, I am curious, how are you planning to continue to build on this work in future collaborations or course iterations?
That is a great question. I think going back to where we described our partnership is it's such that I think Renata and I are always thinking about what's next. I think we're also both very open to, yeah, sure, let's do this, let's try this. So, one of the things that we have kind of actively been working on most recently, we do have a study abroad program that we've brought students to from UF to Ecuador twice now. And so we've kind of been thinking about revising a bit. How might we do that a little bit differently? So one of the things that I think we've talked about that would be really interesting is to do, so they call it a chill, and I will let her describe what that actually stands for. But kind of starting it off with a coil and then having the students go and participate in that travel there is one thing. The other thing that I would love to do, I know Renata, we've talked about this so much, but having students from USFQ come here. We haven't deeply looked at that yet, but there's just there are so many things I think that we are interested in. We've presented at conferences before, and I'm sure that will continue. Renata, do you want to describe some of the things maybe in more detail that we've talked about?
Yes, so I will describe the CHIA, which is they don't only have the virtual exchange, but they can also see each other in person because students go to the university. For example, my students would go to UF to meet Tara's students, and then all of them would come back to Ecuador. So that's one of the projects that we would love to do, and we will be working on that. And definitely more conferences together, and it would be great if we can do another study together. So this partnership, I think, will go on for years. Not only because Tara is my friend, but also because we work together. I think we are great partners when we work. We always have an open dialogue and listen to each other and work together as a team. So I'm sure that this collaboration will continue.
This is fantastic. I'm so happy for both of you, and I'm very excited to know that you are planning to continue in advancing the field, right, in terms of teaching and scholarship. And I can't wait to hear more about it and see you hopefully again in person, Tara, and meet you, Renata, at conferences. And who knows, maybe we'll collaborate again together. And thank you both so much for being here today in this conversation and for sharing your insights and experiences. It's been a pleasure working with both of you as the section head for this particular section, right? The teacher education. And it's been a pleasure also to learning more about your chapter and the important work behind it. So congratulations on your contribution to the handbook. Congratulations on your partnership. It sounds it's been a wonderful partnership and is going to be sustained over the years. And thank you to our listeners. We truly appreciate you joining us and hope today's discussion offer meaningful perspectives on virtual exchange, literacy, and global learning.
Thank you, Alina, and thank you, Kelly and Springer, for this opportunity. We very much appreciate sharing our work.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to participate and Tara for collaborating. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you both. Thank you to our listeners.